in an age of gods and mortals, one man dared to claim the world. This is the story of Alexander the Great. Born into the royal house of Macedon, his destiny was forged not just by blood, but by brilliance. From a young age, Alexander displayed a spirit that burned brighter than any ordinary flame. His father, King Philip II, saw this fire and sought the greatest mind of the era to temper it, the philosopher Under Aristotle's tutelage. The young prince's mind was sharpened on the whetstones of philosophy, science, and literature. He devoured Homer's Iliad, seeing himself in the heroic Achilles, a mortal who chased eternal glory. This education was not merely academic. It was the foundation of a worldview, a belief that destiny was not something to be waited for, but something to be seized. It was here in the gardens of Mesa that the boy who would be king learned to think like an emperor, driven by a relentless ambition and an unshakable belief that he was chosen by the gods to achieve the impossible. Upon his father's assassination in 336 BC, Alexander, at the mere age of 20, ascended to a throne fraught with peril. The Greek city-states, long held under Macedonian sway, saw an opportunity to rebel. But they had underestimated the young king. With lightning speed and brutal efficiency, he crushed the uprisings, solidifying his control over Greece. With his homeland secured, Alexander turned his gaze eastward, towards the colossal, seemingly invincible Persian Empire, a civilization that had been the arch-nemesis of the Greeks for generations. This was not just a campaign for revenge. It was the beginning of an epic odyssey, the first step in fulfilling the prophecy he held in his heart. In 334 BC, with an army of loyal Macedonians and allied Greeks, Alexander crossed the Hellespont into Asia. It was a moment that would forever alter the course of history. The campaigns that followed are the stuff of legend. At the Battle of the Granicus, he led a daring cavalry charge across a river, shattering the Persian front line. At Issos, though vastly outnumbered, his tactical genius turned the tide, forcing the Persian king Darius III to flee and leaving his family captive. Alexander, showing a magnanimity that was as strategic as it was genuine, treated them with the honor befitting royalty. He then marched down the coast, laying siege to the impenetrable island fortress of Tyre for 7 months, building a causeway to the city in a feat of engineering that defied belief. His journey then took him to Egypt, where he was not seen as a conqueror, but as a liberator from Persian rule. The Egyptians hailed him as a pharaoh, a divine ruler. It was here, at the mouth of the Nile, that he founded the first and most famous of his many cities, Alexandria, a beacon of knowledge and culture that would shine for centuries. He traveled to the Oracle of Siwa Oesa, a remote and sacred site, where the priests allegedly confirmed his divine parentage, declaring him the son of Zeus. This divine affirmation only fueled his ambition, reinforcing his belief that his quest was blessed by the heavens themselves. With Egypt secured, Alexander turned back to the heart of Persia. The final confrontation with Darius III came at the Battle of Go. Once again facing a numerically superior army, Alexander employed a masterful strategy, creating a gap in the Persian line and charging directly at Darius. The Persian king fled a second time, his empire collapsing in his wake. Alexander marched into the grand cities of Babylon and Susa, claiming their immense treasures. Finally, he reached Persepolis, the ceremonial capital of Persia. In a controversial act that still echoes through history, the magnificent palace was burned to the ground, a symbolic act of retribution for the Persian burning of Athens a century and a half earlier. With the death of Darius, Alexander became the undisputed king of Asia. But his ambition knew no bounds. He believed in a vision far grander than mere conquest. He dreamed of uniting East and West, of fusing the sophisticated culture of the Greeks with the ancient traditions of the East. This was the dawn of the Hellenic Age. He encouraged his soldiers to marry Persian women, himself taking a Persian princess, Roxana, as his wife. He adopted elements of Persian dress and court customs, a move that was often met with resistance from his staunchly Macedonian veterans. He founded cities all along his path, not just as military outposts, but as centers for the spread of Greek language, art, and ideas. He was building a new world, a single empire, bound by a shared culture and a common dream. Driven by an insatiable curiosity and a desire to reach the ends of the world, Alexander pushed his weary army further east into the unknown lands of India. He faced new and formidable challenges: monsoon rains, dense jungles, and fierce armies riding war elephants. At the Battle of the Hydaspes, he fought his last great engagement against King Por, a battle so costly that it shook his hardened army. Though victorious, his men, exhausted and homesick after years of relentless campaigning, finally refused to go further. Standing at the banks of the Hyphasis River, Alexander, the man who had never known defeat, was forced to turn back. It was a moment of profound reflection, a rare instance where the will of his army triumphed over his own. The return journey was an ordeal, a testament to his unwavering leadership even in the face of despair. He led his troops through the treacherous Gedrosian desert, sharing their hardships and suffering alongside them. Upon his return to Babylon, he began planning for the future administration of his vast empire, new explorations into Arabia, and further integration of his diverse peoples. He famously declared, "There is nothing impossible to him who will try," a motto that had defined his entire life. He had built an empire that stretched from Greece to India, the largest the world had ever seen. But destiny, which had raised him so high, had a final, cruel twist. In 323 BC, in the opulent city of Babylon, at the very heart of his new world, Alexander fell ill. After days of raging fever, the unconquerable conqueror, the man who commanded armies and toppled empires, succumbed. He was just 32 years old. His death sent shockwaves across his vast domain. On his deathbed, when asked to whom he left his empire, he allegedly whispered, "To the strongest." This cryptic reply ignited decades of war among his generals, the Diadochi, who tore his magnificent empire apart. Yet Alexander's legacy was not his empire, which crumbled almost as quickly as it was built. His true legacy was the world he created. He had shattered the barriers between East and West, initiating an unprecedented exchange of culture, knowledge, and trade. The Hellenistic civilization he birthed would shape the Mediterranean and the Middle East for centuries, influencing the Roman Empire and, through it, the very foundations of Western civilization. He burned bright and fast, a meteor streaking across the ancient sky, leaving a trail of light that changed the world forever. His name, Alexander, became a legend, a symbol of ultimate ambition, military genius, and the eternal human quest for glory. He was more than a king. He was a phenomenon, a force of nature who remade the map of the known world and left an indelible mark on the soul of humanity.